Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us in this video. I'm really excited to have this conversation today with somebody in the industry in a kind of a more unique space. This isn't your typical conversation, I would say, in these areas of specialty that my guest is really an expert in. So I'm really excited to introduce everybody to Zack Leonard. Zack, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for the awesome intro. I'm excited to be here and share a little bit more about what we do and how we help.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think let's start there. A little bit of background about you, Zack, and Gembah, the company that you're a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Austin. I'm originally from Minneapolis, but I've lived in Austin for 9 years now. And over the course of the last couple years, I founded and have been running a company called Gembah. And what we are is a product innovation platform. So we help entrepreneurs, Amazon sellers, promotional product companies, a lot of SMBs, create and manufacture products. So we have a team of designers and engineers here in the US that help more with the product creation side of things. So taking those awesome ideas that people have, or if they find some data and want to iterate on existing products, really bringing that to life through a sketching phase and 3D rendering phase and prototyping and CAD file phase with the product innovation side of it. And then from a production side, once that collateral is created, really to help you build the blueprint and look like a professional overseas, we turn it over to our team in China that helps our customers find vetted factories. We've been working with now over 500 factories in 6 different countries that are highly vetted, looking for specific export history, export data, making sure they are who they say they're on paper. So looking at ISO and compliance documents and all that stuff. So really just providing a turnkey solution for people that gives them the ability to focus on what they do best, which is coming up with awesome ideas and marketing the product and selling the product. And we kind of handle the nitty gritty stuff, which is the more tactical and more technical side of the business.
Yeah, that's really point, and a lot of really strong points there as well in terms of a vetted factory network. The idea of really just bringing an idea to you and your team, and to be able to walk it all the way through, and then you own and support the source of the manufacturing, every piece of that part of the business, that gives sellers a little bit of peace of mind that it's overseen through each major step in that process. And so
Absolutely.
one of the questions too that kind of comes to mind for me in terms of, with every box kind of checked, is what sellers often bring to you, or can we just come up with a really cool, unique idea to Gembah and say, hey, this is something that has some really clear USPs, some points of difference. I'm not just white labeling, throwing a sticker on a Chinese
Right.
product. It's just a raw idea. Is that something that, can you and your team can kind of work through with a seller with a legitimate brand to bring an idea and formalize it into a product?
Absolutely. I think to your point, there's really 2 or 3 different points of the creation process that most customers come to us, especially when it comes to developing a product. The first one is they have an existing catalog of SKUs and they want to make the next version of their existing catalog. So let's say that they're making a cup and they've done some research, or they have some sort of feedback from their reviews or whatever it is on their product saying, this would be the next best version of your product, right? So then we help create the collateral. So you're not just going to a factory and trying to go through that process with the factory. You're actually going to it with some sort of rigor and research behind the product development side of it, and then ultimately creating the blueprint, which again helps you look like a professional overseas. Factories appreciate when you come to them prepared with all the details that you need. So all the dimensional data, all the packaging data, really helps you get ahead in that conversation. It speeds up time and potentially can save you some money as well, because you don't have to go through the sampling process over and over again. Kind of have everything ready to go. You might have your molds and all the tooling that you project to have already built out. So you kind of have a leg up on the process there. So that's kind of, entry point 1 is you have an existing catalog. Entry point 2 is, like you said, maybe you are on a Kickstarter, or you have an idea that you want to get out there in the market, and you need to have, this is something completely new and completely novel, and you need to have some sort of way to get it out there, whether it's Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or you have some financial backing to start creating that product. Well, there's ways that you can limit your spend up front instead of having to go into full production, where you can use small batch manufacturing or prototyping or 3D printing, CNC prototyping, where they come to us and they have the idea and we create the blueprint, and then we kind of go the next step after creating the blueprint, but not as far as creating the product at mass production, is giving you that tangible item that you can kind of hold in your hand, get it out to your your network of people that you want to market it for. And then so that's kind of entry point 2. And then finally, entry point 3 is kind of a combination of both. Maybe you have a really established brand in the outdoor space, and you have you want to get into it, and add some sort of new SKU to your catalog of SKUs that is not something you're currently offering. We can help research that idea, put some data behind the research, and maybe also look at the factory side of the equation and see what factories are selling these complementary products for, and give you kind of an estimate of, hey, here's the opportunity here. I have existing product, I want to make XYZ changes. I have the factory side where I can kind of go get some ancillary and primary pricing for you. Let's match those two up and see if this idea is really viable. And if it's viable, then we can go through the entire production and product innovation side of the process.
Yeah, that's so strong. Yeah, and especially too with these different Kickstarter, Indiegogo, this product validation that can happen before you hit production. So I'm assuming that may make up a good amount of, and I think somebody in our community was doing that. The name is eluding me now, and I think he was doing a case study with you guys, right? Eric Howard, I want to say.
Eric Howard, yeah. So we're designing a product for Eric Howard. He's been capturing the kind of step-by-step play as we go through it. I think he's created a few YouTube videos. We're really excited about his product. I think it could be a home run, without getting into too much detail about what he's actually making. But yeah, I mean, he's a great use case of starting with an idea, something I don't believe he's made or it's tapped into that market before yet, and he had some data and rigor behind an idea, and he came to us with that idea, and we helped him bring it to life through the process of creating 3D renderings and sketching and giving him something that he really felt strongly about. And now we're in the process of taking all those files and those bill of materials and everything that we've created for him and bidding out to the factory network that we have. So it's exciting to be at that part, because you're really, like, from my perspective, why I built the company is we're empowering entrepreneurs to create new products and giving them access to resources that they may not have the knowledge before, or may not have the access to with the capital that they have. And so, it's really cool because they end up creating products that I actually want to buy, and hopefully you guys all want to buy too, right?
Right.
And so, it's really fulfilling to see, the ability to help entrepreneurs' dreams come true. I mean, that's why we started this.
Yeah, so strong, so powerful too. And I think for Amazon sellers in 2020, I mean, it's something that you hear, but being put into practice of, hey, what is your true point of difference? If you're dealing with saturation, if you're in a more competitive category, you're dealing with all of the Amazon volatility and Chinese volatility. And one of the points you mentioned too is multiple marketplaces for some of those factories, pre-vetted, ready to go, kind of turnkey options for factories. Can you kind of touch on a few of those? Because that could also impact what product category you're maybe in, or if you're thinking about tariffs, or you're thinking about regionality, any considerations for the markets that your manufacturers are residing in, and how that can impact the entire production process.
Yeah, I think, at the high level, what we help in general when it comes to the sourcing and production side of things is really bridge the gap between the cultures of, wherever you're doing business and wherever you're going to be producing. So we provide you with someone who's actually local on the ground, who has industry expertise in the product that you're producing, so they can they understand the language, they understand the cultural differences. And it's not, sometimes Americans can be a little bullheaded. It's not like that over there. Like, the value of building the relationship of being a long-term partner is extremely important, and face-to-face really matters. So we kind of give you that without you having to physically be there. On top of that, we actually really do encourage all of our customers to utilize our team and go over and visit the factories. Again, it's extremely important to build that relationship. I think, in my opinion, it's the second most valuable relationship as a product seller behind your customers at the end of the day, because the customers give you the feedback to buy your product, iterate on your product, make you money. But at the end of the day, your manufacturer is the one who's physically making the product. I mean, as a marketer, as a e-commerce seller, you're not really making the product. The manufacturer is physically making it. So value that relationship as it is. It's probably the most or second most important relationship that you have. So our team is really built to help bridge that gap and help you value that relationship the way it is. And then on top of that, from a vetting perspective, I think there's just different tactics that we use, just making sure to, again, check the data, trust, make sure that they're just being transparent about who they're doing production with. So if they are selling on Amazon themselves, we ask that question, make sure that it's, it's accurate. If they have export data, we want to fact check and make sure that they actually have export data. So really, when it comes to like any negotiation, it's all about the data that you have, the information that you know. And from there, you can make an educated decision on if you want to use that factory or not. And just having that picture painted before you actually go into business with them is extremely important. And the only way you're really going to have that information is to ask those questions, then also go visit the factory in person and verify that the information that they're giving you is correct. And again, it's just really just painting the picture, making sure that you trust that long-term partnership that you're going into once you start paying the bills and placing purchase orders.
Right. Yeah, makes total sense. It makes all the difference to have that cultural relationship, that line of communication,
Yeah,
makes the negotiation process seamless. And then, that relationship pays dividends over time, and hopefully it's for mutual benefit, right?
of
Yeah.
course. I mean, even if it's a product that you don't personally manufacture with that partner, with that, that factory over there, that, if it's a mutually beneficial relationship where you're not squeezing them on margins, where you value the relationship, where you visit them, where you really accept the culture, they're going to be more willing to help you out. I mean, the same thing if they asked you for a favor. I would imagine, like I said, I was in China a couple of weeks ago, and one of the factories I visited, asked if we could help them navigate the waters of the trade show, arena here in the U.S. They're in the outdoor space. They'd never been to America. And that was one of the things that they asked us to do. And of course I'm going to do that. I mean, this is someone that we're in business with. We're trying to continue to develop a relationship. And, from my perspective, if they're asking me to do a favor, like, of course I'm going to do that. That's a natural thing that you can do for someone that not only is a business partner, but hopefully you can develop a long-standing personal relationship with the people you're in production with. So again, I can only emphasize building that relationship, because it's not just a financial gain that you're going to gain here. It's really just on a personal level. You're going to get to know and expose yourself to a culture that you may not have known before.
Right. Yeah. So strong and powerful for sure. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions I had when I was thinking about connecting with you, and obviously, in some of our separate conversations, I was really kind of geeking out on the idea of, wait, you've got a turnkey solution where I can come to you with an idea, a reasonable budget, and create something truly unique in a mostly saturated market space. We would kind of agree Amazon's relatively saturated. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you kind of hope that somebody who's seeing Gembah for the first time and seeing this process for the first time, what would be something, because obviously just an idea is one step.
Right.
What's due diligence that a seller can complete if they have that same thought process? I feel like we're very much kindred spirits as Amazon sellers. We have the same challenges, the same hiccups, the same anxieties, all that good stuff. But what kind of due diligence can an Amazon seller do where maybe if it's not their first product, maybe they have a little bit of a foundation, so they know off Amazon, they don't have on Amazon strategies. They maybe source a product before.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you would recommend as part of that due diligence process?
Yeah, I think really understanding a few things. One would be the current landscape of the product you're trying to get into. Where's the opportunity? So, for example, there's tons of data out there in brand analytics and Seller Central that you can download and probably get some understanding of, how many players are in the market, how much you're spending on ads, or kind of deduce that information. The next step would be to use, sort of like a tool like Seller Tools, where they can see how keywords are ranking over a period of time. And so really just use the data to your advantage and really understand where there is an opportunity. And once you understand the opportunity, then it's doing a little bit more rigor behind looking at the reviews, what else is out there. Is there an opportunity to make an incremental innovation, which I think is the most viable for an Amazon seller, where you're taking existing product and then taking that data, matching up with what people are saying about it, and come up to say, hey, if I make a slight variation to something that's already out there that's selling well, I have the potential to hit a home run. And not only can I hit a home run on that, I can actually potentially protect it. So part of our process, if you want to go down the patent route, we can match you up with a couple of our patent attorneys that we work with in our network, and you can create design patents, and it matches up really nicely with the production schedule, because once you have those bill of materials and those CAD files, you're pretty much ready to go in terms of being able to file a patent. And so if you file a design patent and you're able to get that approved, you most likely can get it. It takes about a month to 3 months typically. So it matches up nicely with getting your first production run and getting it out on Amazon or on your Shopify or e-commerce or whatever website you're going to be selling it on. So you can have that protection in the U.S. Or wherever you're doing business ahead of the time. So then basically, as you continue to sell, you have a defensible product that no one else can copy and sell in wherever you're selling it.
Yeah. Now that seems like the obvious low-hanging fruit too, is to really spend the time in a market and a product mix that's validated, but through combing and spending some time in those reviews, figuring out what tweaks, points of difference that you can really exploit as a seller in brand new product or an extension of a new product. There's all kinds of really cool and creative ways that you can utilize that relatively quick. I personally haven't been through like the prototyping process myself. I mean, I've had my fair share of all these are great ideas. I think we all have, that then we see on Shark Tank and we see elsewhere. But for this process in particular, we kind of talked about a little bit about due diligence. How quickly, and I know this completely depends on the product, but if we're maybe looking at that incremental innovation, what's a good frame of reference in terms of time that you would say, hey, you should probably account this much to bring it to market? Now we know how long in terms of the patent process and then sourcing and having it online. Is there rules of thumb that sellers should be keeping in mind?
Yeah, I think I can give some high level context on what to expect when you go through this process. Again, it just depends on what your goals are. Are your goals to get something launched off of Kickstarter, or your goals to like get a product out there as fast as you can because you identified a trend and the data's saying like pounce on this, kind of like a stock, right? If you have a stockbroker who calls you and says, hey, this is an idea, the data is showing XYZ, you need to pounce, right? And so the first step is really to get with a industrial designer and a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, whatever you're trying to create, just make sure you have the right people. And that process, if you have someone who understands and has done, made for manufacturing specs before and have actually made real products, it can take, as little as 2 weeks. It can take as long as a couple months. It can take maybe even 6 months. It really just depends on the complexity. But if you're talking about incremental innovation, it shouldn't take as long because the product kind of has the bare bones of what you're already trying to make. And so you should be able to give them some direction on, hey, here's the next iteration of this existing product I want to have. And then they'll have all the dimensional data and everything already kind of in their hands with the existing product. So that can take, a month to 2 months. And then from there, again, it's going to depend on, if you need molds, if there's tooling involved, all the different components that go into the final product. If you have molds, it could take an extra 30 to 60 days in the mold and tooling and sampling process for you. But ultimately, once you have those bill of materials and those CAD files, for a brand new product, a factory is always going to want to make it first in some sort of capacity. So they call it a construction sample. A construction sample basically gives the factory an idea of, okay, this is how much labor and how much time and how much raw materials it's going to take for me to actually physically make this product. And it's hard for them to do it on like a plastic product without them actually creating a mold. And so again, from a cost and a time perspective, that's where things can get a little bit more challenging or a little bit more time and cost necessary for you to actually get that final product made. So again, that process can take another 2 to 3 months on top of that. So if you're identifying a trend, the key is to be able to shorten the amount of time as you possibly can through the sampling process. And what people get tripped up on is that if you go to a factory without those bill of materials, without that CAD drawing, it makes it that much more challenging for you to get to that point because you're not telling them, you're not speaking their language. And so the goal is to try and speak their language, get them the architecture files, kind of like building a house. Would you build a house without a blueprint, without an architect? Probably not. You're not going to get what you want. So if you build a product in the same capacity, if you don't use a blueprint or the right people, an engineer, or industrial designer, you're probably not going to get the end result that you want. It's going to take a lot longer in that process. So the key is to do it the right way.
Right. Yeah. And to clarify too, those engineers are all part of the Gembah team and they can work collaboratively. Is that really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the goal is for each different product, we match you up with an expert that has made that type of product before or something similar, right? And so for an electrical product, for example, you're going to need probably an industrial designer, mechanical engineer, and an electrical engineer to be able to give you the aesthetic with the industrial designer, mechanics of how it works with the mechanical engineer, and then how the electronics all connect through either PCBs or different circuits with the electrical engineer. So again, it really just depends on the complexity of the product, but the goal for Gembah is to match up you with the team that you need to get the product made.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, really powerful. In what you had mentioned for some of the materials, maybe not having those pieces ready, are there common pitfalls or mistakes that you see working in that process? I mean, obviously, it's a huge benefit to have a subject matter expert, your team walking through each one of those steps. Is there missteps that you see, or pitfalls, or just kind of those landmines that may be out there that you would say, especially coming into this new year? I mean, now that we've got
Yeah.
the look ahead of and the benefit of hindsight, what could be out there to make sure you avoid?
Yeah, I think being very crystal clear about the product you want to make is probably the number one thing if you're going down this path that I can recommend. Where people get tripped up is if they don't exactly know what they want, and then they use, you know, the sketching, the prototyping. They get to the end of like the bill of materials, they get a sample and they're like, oh, I don't want this product anymore, right? Like that's a lose-lose for everyone involved. It's a lose for the factory, it's a lose for the seller, it's a lose for, you know, the designers that you used. So I think just having a clear idea of what you're trying to make is obviously step one. I think, again, going back to data and rigor behind the decisions that you're making. So it's not just as easy as, hey, I have a great idea and I'm just going to put pen to paper. Like, really do the research and make sure that your idea is viable. And if you need to use, again, like there's great ways that you can not go the full gamut of, you know, buying molds and going to the factories and getting a good industrial designer create some 3D renderings and sketches and stuff, and get feedback from your friends, get feedback from your network of people that you trust, or, you know, just a way to sort of validate that your product is viable. So both with the data and then also kind of the qualitative, you know, with your network of friends or your network of, you know, trusted business associates, to really just make sure that you have a product that people want to buy.
Right. Yeah, that market validation is so huge, so huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then clarity of vision. That's great. Awesome stuff. Great due diligence that every seller should be doing, no matter if they're, you know, if they're white labeling, slapping a sticker on it, or doing
Yeah.
wholesale, you know, product innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, you know, from my perspective, I think this is the next generation of Amazon sellers to really create new products, not just create or not just sell something that already exists on the market or private label, because again, there's no defensibility in that regard. And if everyone sees the trend, you know, you'll start to see the numbers just continue to tank, and it becomes a game of who's willing to take the lowest margin and pay the most marketing dollars to rank the highest on Amazon or rank the highest on, you know, Shopify or wherever they're selling their products, Walmart, whatever it takes. So I think, you know, being able to create defensible products is really what's going to set aside, you know, the next generation of Amazon sellers.
Yeah, absolutely. A big hedge against the race to the bottom. It's unfortunate, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what we see time and time again.
But you're seeing that across the board, not just in Amazon. I mean, look at, you know, the gig economy, Uber and Lyft. I mean, for them, it's a similar conversation, right? It's who offers the best service for the lowest price. It's the same in the delivery space. And that's part of my background was, you know, I was at Instacart for a long time. I was in a local company here in Austin called Drop Off. And I just kept seeing that, you know, in that realm, in the delivery space, it's whoever's willing to take the lowest margin that's going to, you know, and provide the best service is going to, you know, win and succeed in that business. And so, you know, I think that there's more defensibility when you're coming out with a product in that you have the ability to create something that doesn't exist, you know, that's not on the market already. And you can really, you know, protect it through patents and through different channels and making sure that you have something that people really want and can make an awesome opportunity for you to create, you know, more value to your bottom line. If you want to exit or if you want to create just a cash cow for your business, right? Like that's the name of the game at this point.
Right. Yeah. Huge. Anti commoditization, let's say.
Exactly.
Something different, something unique and valuable. Go figure. That's really compelling from a customer's perspective. They like new, valuable products and services. So it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, awesome, Zach. This was really great to get to know a little bit more about you and Gembah. I'm not surprised at all diving into each part of this process. I think sellers are going to really see how powerful this process can be, this ability to take ideas to market and create those points of difference. So really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and wanted to mention before wrapping up, I think we were going to do something really special, and we really appreciate you doing this for folks that are part of Seller.Tools. And if I remember correctly, we just want to encourage folks when they are taking a look at Gembah, would definitely encourage you guys to take a moment to take a look at the website. Is that if you enter Seller.Tools in, if you decide to move forward, we're going to get some awesome savings from Zack and Gembah and the team, and really appreciate you extending that, Zack.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think the best way to get in touch with us is to go to www.gembah.com. That's Gembah, or feel free to email info@gembah.com. And like you mentioned, Troy, for all of the Seller.Tools prospects and listeners and customers, we're willing to offer a 10% discount on all of our pre-production services. So that's all of our design and sourcing services that we offer for our customers. And we're looking forward to hopefully helping out and creating new products for your audience.
That's awesome. Yes, and thank you for spelling it. You guys have a unique. It's a very sticky name. Once you get it, you don't forget it.
Gembah.
Gembah. That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. Well, thank you, Zack, again for extending that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's interview. Really just appreciate Zack taking the time, chatting through. I think we could talk hours and hours. I love what you guys are doing. It's awesome, again, especially coming into the new year. It's always an evergreen consideration, but creating really valuable, unique, and distinct products, I think we're totally on the same page. It's going to be what's next in the Amazon space.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Troy. I appreciate the time and was really happy to be on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Zack.
Thank you.